T-Mobile has America's largest 5G network, bigger than Verizon and AT&T's combined. And now, with T-Mobile's Best Go 5G plans, you get the freedom to upgrade your phone when you want. Every year or every two, you decide. Take charge of your phone upgrades at T-Mobile. Get the latest phones and an awesome network. Visit your neighborhood store or T-Mobile.com to make the switch. Get 2-year financing on Go 5G Plus and Next. 1-year upgrade on Go 5G Next requires financing new qualifying device and upgrading in good condition after 6+ months with 50% paid off. Upgrade ends any financing and promo credit. See T-Mobile.com.
Hey, welcome into this week's episode of the Show Before the Show podcast, the official podcast of minor league baseball, as we turn the corner around the middle of October with Samuel Dykstra in the Phoenix area and Benjamin Hill in New York City. My name is Tyler Mon. Sam's just chilling, enjoying a solid glass of orange juice this morning. How is it, Sam? You pulp or no pulp?
I am no pulp.
Thank God.
I could go either way. Like, I'm not going to turn you away if you offer me a pulpy orange juice. But if I have my choice, which I do this morning, I choose no pulp.
Ben, pulp, no pulp?
I'm agnostic as an adult. As a kid, that was an absolute. As a picky eater, as a kid, that was an absolute
the worst.
Deal breaker. Like, yeah. I just on a deep fundamental level found it disgusting. But I look back at a lot of my little kid habits, and I'm just like, oh my God, man. Grow up, you know.
And then you did.
I did. Because I thought it was ridiculous. And I think back to like what my parents had to deal with and these standoffs about what to eat. And
especially now that you're a father, I would imagine that just rings that much truer.
Yeah, it's going to be tough navigating that as it was for my parents. But so now pulp, yeah, I'll take it any way I can get it. I'm not that into pulp, the Brit rock band, fronted by Canvas Cocker.
Totally.
I'm more of a heavy rock guy. Don't get into the Brit pop, but hey, shout out to Pulp and shout out to Jarvis Cocker, because my grandfather was named Jarvis and there ain't too many Jarvi out in the world. So
I had a great grandfather named Angus. Why are there not cool names like Jarvis and Angus anymore?
I don't know. I don't think there were that many Jarvises at any point, really.
That could be. That's a good point. Yeah, I'm still like a little anti-pulp. If you serve me like a fresh squeezed glass of orange juice, sure, that's fine. But I'm never going to the store and buying the orange juice with the pulp. That's like the sign of a serious issue.
We don't have any Tony Sopranos on this.
We do not.
On this.
That is true. We're 0 for 3 in that regard.
Yeah.
Well, that'll do it for this week's episode of the Show Before the Show. This episode called Talkin' Pulp with Ben, Sam, and Tyler. No, we welcome you into this week's episode. We are nearing potentially our World Series matchup coming up here over the next few days. Our resident Phillies fan, Ben Hill, is here. He and his team headed he's not headed to Phoenix. He's going to watch the game that's going on in Phoenix, but this is the second week in a row. Diamondbacks fans, I'm sorry, but Ben, I think it would be cheaper for you to buy a round trip ticket and a hotel and get one of these $5 seats for game 3 of the National League Championship Series and fly back to New York than to get a ticket to a game in Philly. Come on, D-backs fans. I get it. It's a work day. It's the afternoon, but come on, your team's in the National League Championship Series for the first time in 16 years. Get some tickets. How are you feeling going in 2-0 with a Phillies lead?
Oh, I've just been enjoying it every step of the way. I actually got to go to game 1 on Monday, which was great. And I went with my mom. It was her first Phillies postseason game since I don't know what game it was, but the 1983 World Series.
Wow.
So she'd taken 40 years off. She only really got back into the Phillies this year. I think towards the end of last year, she just realized like how much fun people were having, and finally came around this year to actually watching them. So, she followed them all year, and, she's funny as a baseball fan, asks a lot of questions, and is still learning, despite being the mother of Ben's biz. She's still learning a lot about baseball this late in the game. But no, it was great atmosphere. Did public transportation the whole way, which was its own series of adventures and misadventures. I love the city of Philadelphia, but their public transportation signage and communication and ticketing systems are just bafflingly poor, and it makes me upset every time I go, because I just want to support Philly all the time, and I just feel like, ugh, guys, come on. If we're transferring to Suburban Station, regional rail, and we have to get off at the City Hall station to do that. Why are there no signs for Suburban Station anywhere? Anywhere. Like, it's just the most basic stuff.
That does seem very annoying.
Throughout the whole system. I mean,
Yeah.
it just seems like the secret society you have to like slowly learn.
You have to take a class in it before you can navigate it.
Exactly.
Well, coming up tonight, we're recording this on Thursday the 19th. So coming up tonight is Game 3 of the National League Championship Series. Today, I should say, this afternoon. And then this evening, Game 4 of the American League Championship Series. Ben, we are moving our way through really kind of the last of your regular season content here in 2023. And finishing off all the road trips and all that. Columbus, a spot where you got to go late in the season, home to one of my favorite people in minor league baseball, Matt Leininger, who is the big on-field host. I say big because his Twitter handle was literally like Big Matt. He's a former D1 football player, and he's just like as good a dude as exists in baseball. So a big shout out to Matt. Tell us about the Columbus trip and the stuff coming up from that.
Yeah, that's the final ballpark stop we have to talk about on this podcast, and the final one, featured in a full write-up in my newsletter, the Ben's Biz Beat, and on MILB.com. That came out just today in the newsletter, and tomorrow, Friday, it'll be up on the site, and you can check it out. I had not been to see the Columbus Clippers, Huntington Park, since 2014. It's been 9 years. The Clippers were established in 1977, but baseball in Columbus goes back to 1877. So it's another one of those cities that just has a ton of history. And that history is really well reflected throughout the ballpark. They've had a team historian have the Clippers, Joe Santry, for a lot of years. And he was not at the game I attended, this most recently, but 9 years ago, I wrote a story about him and his deep knowledge. And I know that's gone a long way to what the Clippers have done, throughout the ballpark, with the signs honoring old players, plaques, a bar on the building within the building in left field, just filled with memorabilia. There's even like pictures and baseball cards underneath the bar itself, I guess protected by a layer of plexiglass or something of that nature. But it's just a great place to take in a lot of baseball history. But then at the same time, Huntington Park, opened in 2009, and I don't want to say it feels new, but it feels pretty new, all things considered. Beautiful downtown ballpark, view of the skyline within of the Columbus skyline, at the ballpark, a standalone structure in left field, all brick that is, kind of similar aesthetic to the surrounding downtown buildings. It's part of the arena district. So it's also home to an NHL team, walking distance from the Clippers, the Columbus Blue Jackets, and there's also an MLS team as well nearby. I'm blanking on the name of the MLS team.
Columbus Crew. Their stadium is insane. That place is amazing.
Yeah, so you can see the Crew, the Blue Jackets, and the Clippers all within a very short space. So, it's a great downtown ballpark, plenty of room to move, a 360-degree concourse, wide aisles, great great scoreboard, interesting architecture. They have a Victory Bell there, and there was one in Indianapolis as well. I'm not sure how many Victory Bells are found around the minor leagues, but just that old-fashioned tradition of ringing the Victory Bell after a win, and that's been a long-standing thing in Columbus. The Victory Bell they have was originally at the a downtown Columbus firehouse, and then went from there to their former home of Cooper Stadium, which was then called Jet Stadium because the Columbus Jets, a baseball team, played there. So that same Victory Bell that's got to be 100 years old or even more is still on the concourse, and they have a long-running team theme song, which I believe was featured years ago on the special episode of the show before the show.
Believe you are right.
With all team theme songs, we keep saying we need to A, dig that up and disseminate it again, and B, do another one. That was a really great piece of minor league content, if I do say so myself. But Columbus Clippers, Ring Your Bell, a polka style ditty. And
the Clippers' old stadium, by the way, Cooper Stadium, part of that stadium is still standing, which is very cool and eerie and weird. And I drove by it a few years ago, and it's fascinating to just like you're driving along in an area where you're not really expecting to see much of anything cool, and then all of a sudden here comes part of the grandstand. I think they tore down essentially 80% of the stadium, and then for whatever reason, the third base side grandstand remains standing, and sort of like the old team offices, but it's all fenced off and closed off and everything. It's really it's a very cool, almost like apocalyptic feeling thing. It's really cool.
Yeah, I wish I'd been able to see that. I drove straight in that morning from Indianapolis, and then the plan was to fly out to New York City that evening. My flight got canceled, and I had to spend an extra night in Columbus. But it did not occur to me to go visit a haunted baseball stadium that night, and I should have. Yeah, Cooper Stadium. There's a statue of Harold Cooper outside of Huntington Park. He was, very influential in Columbus baseball. He worked at that ballpark when he was a kid. Allegedly, his first job at the ballpark was wiping mold off of hot dogs, which is a practice I don't think continues to this day.
Yum.
But Harold Cooper went on to help bring the Columbus Jets to Columbus, and then when they folded and disappeared, he helped bring the Clippers to Columbus. So that stadium, which was initially, I believe, Redbird Stadium, then became Jet Stadium, then finally became Cooper Stadium. And again, they moved to Huntington Park in 2009. Another little interesting bit of history in that ballpark. It's not on display, but I was talking to Chris Sprague, the team's media relations director. I'm not sure his exact title, but he's been with the Clippers, and he worked for the International League itself for many years. So he knows a lot about the team and its history. He took me up to the team offices, where in those team offices, you can find the Governor's Cup. You remember the Governor's Cup, of course. It was awarded to the winner of the International League from 1933 through 2019. Then after the reorganization of minor league baseball, different playoff system, I guess it was discontinued, but because the Clippers won the cup in 2019, it's just still there. And I hope they find a way, by they, I mean just in the International League, minor league baseball, find a way to bring the Governor's Cup back into circulation, because it's a really heavy, big, impressive, and it's literally like a cup, big trophy style cup, and has the winners engraved, and it's kind of like the Stanley Cup in that it goes from team to team. It's the same one that goes there year to year. I was told, though, however, that was actually the third Governor's Cup since it had been established in 1933, and the second one met its untimely demise. And I remembered this once it was mentioned again to me. But the Scranton Wilkes-Barre Rail Riders won the Governor's Cup in 2008. They had it on display in their team offices. And in 2009, an angry fan who was really irate over like a catering issue picked it up and smashed it.
What?
Yeah.
Holy cow. That is an incredible minor league baseball story. I feel like we need like a true crime podcast about that.
Yeah.
Yeah. I did find a little local news article about it. I'm not sure if we covered it on MILB.com, but I was like, what a fascinating little tale the time the Governor's Cup got destroyed. So I guess they got a new one, hopefully in time for that 2009 winner. And that one is the one that's currently in the possession of the Columbus Clippers, their 2019 Governor's Cup that still resides at Columbus. And, that was also...
What happened to the first one? Do you know? You said there were three. I don't know.
Yeah, that's another good... I could get in touch with Chris or, some more historical minded person. I think Chris did know, Chris Sprague with the Clippers, how long that went on. And at that point, it might have just been 40, 50 years into the game, whatever. They just decided it was time for a refurbished, shiny new one. I'm not sure the story there, but it was really cool to see. And that was instituted in 1933, the Governor's Cup, in tandem with a truly groundbreaking playoff format. We think nothing of it now, but the International League in 1933 was the first league to add like a multi-round playoff format to create more interest in the long baseball season. And that was called the Shaughnessy system, after the president of the International League at that time. I cannot remember his first name. Let's just say Frank Shaughnessy, something like that. But Shaughnessy was the president of the International League. So I believe they had the top 4 teams get in the playoffs and play 2 rounds. And now that's, commonplace, and endless variations of that and more complex versions of that. But that in 1933 was groundbreaking then. So that's why I like baseball history. You can just go on all these tangents. And as I write in the newsletter and in the forthcoming MILB.com article about Columbus, there's a lot to explore when you go to Huntington Park, while also being in a great new seeming ballpark, and some good food too. There's an outpost of Dirty Frank's Hot Dog Palace in that standalone left field building, and they have all sorts of specialty dogs. My designated eater, a guy named Austin Call, one of the guys he got, or one of the hot dogs he got from Dirty Frank's, had jalapenos, cheddar cream cheese, and tater tots. So pretty good combination.
That sounds amazing.
Yeah, Tyler just
I'm
perked.
very into that.
Two things real quick. One, it was Frank Shaughnessy, so well done by you. Yeah.
Good. I pulled that out of thin air. I was like, let's just go with Frank and hope it works out. Thank you.
Yeah, Frank, his nickname was Shag. It was Frank Shag Shaughnessy. I'm sure Shag is a play off Shaughnessy in a way that the early 20th century only could. But the other thing, I knew we were talking about Columbus, so I just wanted to pull up attendance figures. Attendance this year in Columbus, they were second in AAA with an average of 7,847 fans per game. Is there anything you feel like they're doing especially well to bring in fans, or is it just that urban environment that you're talking about, how it's very centralized, it's very easy to get to, and it's in I don't want to say it's sports craze town, but it is, sports are a big part of the culture there in Columbus.
Yeah, I mean, it was a small sample size for me. I can't pinpoint anything operationally that was like, whoa, this is a total industry outlier and it's really working. But like I said, I mean, I just think, they have a great front office. Their team president, Ken Schnocky, has been there for decades and decades. So there's just a lot of institutional knowledge, great understanding of the city of Columbus. And yeah, like we said, like a great ballpark in a central location combined with a team that has a lot of history in a baseball town with a lot of history. I just think it's been a good formula for success. And that location, I'm sure, really helps. I mean, downtown ballparks, what can you say? They bring some hassles, but to me, it's just such a much more successful template than going 10, 15, 20 miles outside the city and just being in an otherwise open area that doesn't have that walkability and that sense of the city itself. So I think that's a huge part of that.
All right, Ben, we are, you mentioned that when you went to Columbus, you were coming from Indianapolis. You got a story up on the site from Indianapolis. You've also got one from Louisville. Give us the rundown. We talked a little bit about your Howard Kellman story from last week, but that's up on the site now.
Yeah, you can read the story on Howard Kellman, who's been broadcasting games for the Indianapolis Indians since 1974. So check out that story. I believe he is the longest tenured broadcaster in minor league baseball. I always hesitate to make that claim definitively because it always feels like you might be forgetting somebody. But 1974 to today. And that's just a run of longevity at any level of sports that is, really remarkable. So it's great talking to Howard. You can check that story out on MILB.com. Also, earlier this week, there was a story on another baseball long timer. I seem to be on a little bit of a kick with the veterans, but the president of the Louisville Bats, Greg Galliette. I should really know how to say his last name, considering I've just written a story about him. But he has been president of the Louisville Bats since, he hasn't been president since 1985. He's been working for the Louisville Bats since 1985. So just a remarkably, long run for him. And it was interesting to talk to him about how minor league baseball has changed from playing at a college football stadium with 35,000 capacity to today playing in a downtown stadium. And, so get into that a little bit, some of his early memories at Cardinal Stadium, the concerts they hosted there, Grateful Dead fans camping out around the ballpark and hanging their laundry outside his office, that kind of thing. I like talking to people about, different eras of minor league baseball and ones that seem particularly foreign to us, as we navigate today's landscape.
All right, Ben. Well, we're going to pivot and talk about one of the best times of the year, and that is fast approaching. It's Logovember coming up in just a couple of weeks. Now, obviously, the days in minor league baseball are much different now in terms of how many rebrands we've got every offseason, redesigns, refreshes for team brands. But we do know that we got a couple of teams that are headed toward new looks in 2024, and a team who teased something big coming on November 1st is the Greensboro Grasshoppers. What do you know out of Greensboro?
Yeah, not much, or certainly not much I can say right now. But November 1st, event at the ballpark, teasing a new era of Grasshoppers baseball, and that will kick off so-called Logovember. I believe it was Brandiose, the logo design company, who came up with Logovember, but now it just seems to be used every year is just for those who pay attention, that type of thing. And we had some very robust Logovembers for a lot of years, but since the COVID season and the reorganization of minor league baseball, the financial uncertainty, this uncertainty around the industry, obviously less money to invest in such things with COVID and what a hit the teams took with that. Bottom line, processes have changed somewhat, for new logos and for rebrands and that kind of thing. It's been a little slow the last couple of years, and this year will not be as maybe robust as, let's say, I don't know, 2018 or so. But I feel like it's on the way back up. Some refreshes, some rebrands, some tweaking, some full scale reinvention. It'll vary team by team, but we'll have a run of those to look forward to starting in November, and we'll see what the Greensboro Grasshoppers have up their sleeve or under their wing, or however you want to say it, on November 1st.
He is Benjamin Hill. You can find him all over the social medias at Ben's Biz and The Ben's Biz, and you can find his stuff, of course, at MILB.com. And looking forward to getting a chance to talk some logo nerdery coming up here in a few weeks. Thanks, Ben.
Yeah, Tyler, you're the man for the job when it comes to logo nerdery, and we'll go hard.
Can't wait.
Until then.
Needless to say, you don't play favorites, but every family has a natural unspoken hierarchy, and always has. At least when it comes to claiming your place in the car. You know how it goes. The one with the longest legs, you're up front. Congratulations. The shortest kid, you're in the way back. And the nicest sibling with the best attitude, right smack dab in the middle. Sorry, buddy. Is it usually the mild-mannered middle child? You bet. They're such a good sport. Is it fair, comfortable, and enjoyable for all? Absolutely not. Until now. Finally, the first ever Lexus TX is a 3-row SUV where everybody wins. With intuitive tech, cup holders for all, loads of elbow room, cargo room, and leg room. For everyone, no matter where they sit. This is a new era of 3-row luxury. The Lexus TX. Experience amazing at your Lexus dealer.
Do you have a skincare routine? If you're a guy, the answer is probably no. When you neglect your skin, it starts to show early signs of aging. You already shave and shower. Wouldn't you invest another 20 seconds a day to keep your skin looking its best? Introducing Ember. Ember just launched a high-performance moisturizer with key ingredients like hyaluronic acid, caffeine, and vitamin E to keep your skin looking young, all in a fast, easy-to-use pump. You'll keep your skin hydrated and looking great all day. Check out emberskin.com to give Ember a try today and use code PODCAST for 20% off your first order.
Well, continuing along on this week's episode of the show before the show, Sam's still in the Grand Canyon State and wrapping up his time watching the Arizona Fall League, but a lot of standout guys in the AFL from year to year, Sam, and we're going to talk about a few of those on this week's episode of the show before the show. And we're going to kick things off talking about prospects who right now would be overshadowed by what their big league team is doing unless they, I don't know, put together an insane night on like the night off of when their big league team was playing the National League Championship Series. And Philadelphia Phillies prospects were kind enough to do just that this week, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, so I was at the game in Scottsdale last night, and some of these Phillies guys have really stood out during my time here. Whenever I go to a Scottsdale Scorpions game, Gabriel Rincones Jr. in particular, I feel like has had a really strong fall, but also Oliver Dunn has done that too. And, when I pick my storylines every night, part of the consideration has to be like, hey, is anybody going to see this? So if a Phillies guy does really well on a night where the Phillies win, say 10-0 in game 2 of the NLCS, nobody's going to see it. And that makes it a little bit more difficult. That's something we have to consider in what we write. So like you said, I was at the Scottsdale game on Wednesday, and as the game was slowly unfolding, you realized how good the Phillies prospects in that game were collectively doing. It ended up being that there were 4 prospects in the game from the Phillies for Scottsdale. They went a combined 11 for 15 with 7 runs scored and 6 RBIs. Scottsdale ended up winning 9-8 on a walk-off win. They got the win because Oliver Dunn, a Phillies prospect, who they actually got from the Yankees in the minor league portion of the Rule 5 draft last year, he delivered the walk-off win with a walk. And he had some really good takes in that at bat. He was going up against Jacob Wallace, a Royals right-handed reliever. I was talking to him afterwards, and he was saying there were a lot of cutters that he was laying off because he thought they were going to be a foot outside. And then at the last second, they would jolt towards the plate. And he was very happy that he was laying off those pitches, but they were some very close calls. He said it was his first walk-off ever at any level. He's never done that in Little League, high school, anywhere, pros, what have you. So that was pretty cool. So you could kind of tell because he didn't know how to celebrate. He got the walk-off win. He went about 10 feet up the line to first base, and they got Gatorade dumped on him. And it was like, yeah, I did it. And then like slowly started walking towards the dugout. And everybody's like, no, you need to go to
all right,
base.
this is it.
Yeah. And yeah, Surprise actually threw the ball over to first base just to be like, hey, can we call him out for like not actually reaching the base, but the umpires let it go. But yeah, so he did really well. Gabriel Rincones Jr. actually had a triple to center field that TrackMan said would have gone 452 feet. But the batter's eye in Scottsdale is in play.
Right.
Which is very confusing. I'm surprised they don't put a line.
Unique. Yeah.
Yeah, like where the wall would be and everything above that yellow line. But they don't do that in Scottsdale. They do that in most places. So he hustled the whole way. He'd said afterwards, like, I knew I hit it well, but I wasn't going to get like a cheap double out of this. I knew I needed to hustle until somebody told me it was a home run. So I do credit to him for A, hitting that ball, and then B, actually working his way through with the triple, because I thought it was gone off the bat. It should have been gone. 452 should not be a triple. But yeah, those guys, one thing I wanted to talk to them about was like, hey, the Phillies organization right now is fueled by its bats. You see Kyle Schwarber, Nick Castellanos, Bryce Harper. These guys are going off in the postseason with home runs. They are playing with long ball. This is not just like we're going to dink and dunk runs. They are swinging for the fences and they are connecting. How does that trickle down? And they said it's not so much swinging for the fences that they are taking away from what the Major League Club is doing. It's getting your pitch and not missing. Having a disciplined approach to know that, hey, if this ball is dead red, I'm going to swing, and I'm going to swing hard to make good contact. That's who we want to be. It's not just we're going to be swinging wildly and trying to be the next Kyle Schwarber, because there's only one Kyle Schwarber. One thing the Rincones said was like, everybody has a different swing. We know that. We're not trying to be somebody else that we're not. So it was just fascinating to talk to those guys, especially, on the run that the Major League team is, and to see that, like I said, trickle down to the minor leaguers and see them get hot at the same time. It's more of a funny coincidence than anything, but I do love that in the way baseball works, that this organization that we're all paying attention to, guess what? There are guys coming too, not far behind.
Sam, another prospect who has kind of stood out to you in the early going of the AFL is the Chicago Cubs infield prospect, James Triantos, who was the 56th overall pick back in 2021, a second round selection. This year played in 83 games between High A South Bend and Double A Tennessee. Only 3 of those games were Double A Tennessee, but so far you've liked what you've seen from him?
Yeah, at least from the hitting side. And this is one reason I want to bring him up, because Triantos, since he was taken in the draft, like you said, Tyler, has always been known as a really, really good hitter. He's not a very big dude. I mean, you look at him, he's listed at 6'1". That might be on the big side, I think. He's a little bit smaller than that, but he's always hit really well. The guy can spray the ball around. He can take it where it's hit. It's mostly line drives right now. It's not a ton of power, but like there might be something in there as he kind of grows into it. He's still only 20 years old as we're talking here. He'll be turning 21 before next season. Yeah, he'll be turning 21 next January. So he's still plenty young, can hit the ball really well. You look at his stats so far, he's second in the fall league with a 488 average. He's 1.393 OPS is tops in the fall league, which is why I wanted to bring him up. He's just doing a really good job of spraying it around. He's getting triples by the bunches. He's not the fastest guy in the world either, but again, if you're hitting it in the gaps and hustling out of the box, which is something he told me he enjoys doing, like when he hits the ball, he's automatically looking for extra bases. That's going to happen. You're going to get your triples. So to see that play really well. The interesting thing for me with Triantos is what he's going to be defensively here in the fall league, because he's moved around so far. Some teams see him as an infielder. He's gotten a lot of time at second base. He's played some at third base, but they've also moved him to center field. which again, he's not the fastest guy in the world, but what he said to me was, as long as the ball's in front of me, I'll be okay. As long as I can see it and keep it in front of me and get my glove on it, I'll be fine. But they also tried him in left field the other night. Now, he's not going to play center field for the Cubs. I'm just telling you that right now, because guess who's in that organization? Pete Crow Armstrong, the best defensive player in the minor leagues. Now he's a major leaguer, but we just named him the defender of the year in minor league baseball. As long as PCA's in that org, Triantos isn't playing center. So they gave him a look in left. It's still a work in progress out there, very much so. His arm actually works really well. He had a couple plays at the plate that he got it there. Like, he made it close because of his arm. But there was one play, it was a ball hit straight to him. He was clearly under it, would have been the third out of the inning, and he just straight up dropped it. It was almost like his brain turned off. In that it looked like, he was under it, he was settled under it. He's like, all he got to do is let it hit the glove and they'll be fine. And it didn't. So it's going to be a learning process for him out there if he's going to stick in left field. My thing is, if that's going to happen, he's going to need to add a little bit more power. But like, so far so good. Like I was saying, in the fall league, he is doing that. He's slugging 805. He only has one home run, but again, the 4 triples are pushing that slugging percentage up. I'm just fascinated to see what he can be moving forward, because he started out this year with a torn meniscus. That's why he was so limited. That's why he's in the fall league, to make up for some of these at-bats. He's making most of the at-bats. It's just, what's the glove going to be? We'll find out at some point next year. He's probably going to return to Double-A in an optimistic way, maybe make Triple-A by the second half and be pushing for Wrigley by August, September. But he's got to get that glove figured out first.
All right, Sam, a name that we have talked about a lot over the last couple of years, but obviously had a very up and down 2023 with various injuries and coming back from, the start of a season in which you thought, man, we're going to see this guy really factor into a big league rotation at some point soon. Didn't exactly go that way, but Ricky Tiedemann, who is finally healthy and getting back to work, this year only made really what felt like a handful of appearances. He did actually make 15 total starts this year. 11 of those were with Double-A New Hampshire, but an abbreviated season, to say the least, for the Blue Jays prospects. What have you seen out of Ricky Tiedemann? This is such an important time for him to be able to, face hitters, get some innings under his belt, and head into the offseason with some momentum.
Yeah, I mean, the AFL is made for Ricky Tiedemann, right? Like, he's both a star pitcher. He's our top left-handed pitching prospect, according to MLB Pipeline, and somebody who missed a lot of time during the season. Like you said, Tyler, had dealt with a shoulder injury in the spring, was dealing with biceps issues in the middle of the summer. I was talking to some Blue Jays sources, and they were telling me during the year, listen, Ricky wants to pitch. Like, if it was up to him, he would be out there throwing 6-7 innings. He thinks he's ready to go, but we know what we have in him, and we want to protect him. We don't want to push him too hard and have him get re-injured and have, a bicep turn into a forearm, turn into an elbow, turn into a Tommy John. So they protected him. Now he's in the AFL. His first 2 outings were both 5 innings. His third was 3, which I know caused some concern on Blue Jays Twitter, but that was because he was playing in the Goodyear triple header last Saturday. The games in that triple header were only 7 innings. So some teams were like, hey, we need pitchers to get work. Ricky, we're sorry, we can't have you take up 5/7 of this game. So they only allowed him to throw 3 innings. He struck out 5 in that game, gave up 1 run. So was his normal self, only walked 1. But what stood out to me in that game was he was actually getting stronger as it went along. Now, we talked to Jesus Cano, who works for us for MLB Pipeline, has been doing a tremendous job for us down here in Arizona, covering the AFL. And he was saying, like, I knew I was limited, so I was pumping it a little harder there at the end. But his last 10 fastballs were every single one of them, at 96 to 97 miles per hour. So the fact that he was gaining strength as it went along, was holding up well, could touch 97 there at the end, was really something to watch for me. His slider has looked really good. It's a sweeping slider. It's kind of long, but he throws it out of a 3/4 release, which makes it a little difficult to pick up. His changeup has always been really good. We were giving it plus grades coming out of last year. Righties can't really touch it that well. He can be a pretty dominant, like, number 2 starter. It's just going to come down to health. But as we're standing here right now, he's tied for the AFL lead with 18 strikeouts. He's done that in 13 innings. He's given up 4 runs, so like a 2.77 ERA, good by any measure for sure. In the early sample, he's not up there amongst the leaders, but like everything you could have hoped for Ricky Tiedemann has been here so far in the desert. So we'll see how much further he's going to go. He's up to 13 innings right now. Again, he's somebody who needs to make up for the innings, and he's somebody who's champing at the bit to like get out there and pitch more. We'll see what kind of reins the Blue Jays put on him. But for right now, so far, so good for Ricky Tiedemann.
Well, it is the final days of Sam gallivanting around the desert in the Arizona Fall League and getting a chance to talk with prospects near and far. And he's got one for this week's episode of the show before the show. Tee it up.
Yeah, so this week's interview is with Corey Rosier, a Boston Red Sox outfield prospect playing out here in the Arizona Fall League. One reason I wanted to talk to him was because he has a little bit of an interesting story. He was a 2021 draft pick, was taken in the 12th round that year by the Seattle Mariners. He's since been traded twice, first from the Mariners to the Padres, and then the Padres to the Red Sox in the Eric Hosmer deal. He actually went with Hosmer from the Padres to the Red Sox. So we talk a little bit about that. He's always been a speed guy. He sold 49 bases this year. He sold 40 bases a year ago. So he's always looking to push the issue on the base paths. And that plays really well into today's game. That's carried so far into the AFL. So we touch on that as well. And also just a bunch of minor league stuff, which I think made for a fun end to the interview. So stick through to the end and find out about some of Corey's thoughts on minor league things he's seen so far. So here's me talking to Corey Rosier. All right, Corey, we're talking here on Monday, so we're about 2 weeks into the AFL season so far. How do you feel like it's gone?
Personally or as a team?
Well, personally. Let's start personally.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like I've been swinging the bat well, putting together solid quality at bats, kind of bounced around the lineup, but I've been feeling good at the plate and playing good defense. So,
yeah, at what point did the Red Sox come to you and say they wanted you to come here?
It was about the third to last week of the season. I mean, we had mentioned it to them earlier in the year. And then they finally let me know that they were going to send me here. So that was obviously, huge accomplishment and excited to be here.
Yeah, so you approached them saying, like, this is something you were interested in?
Yeah, I mean, we mentioned it early, like spring training, and then just kind of let it marinate. And as I start to put up numbers, we circled back around and ended up working out. So
yeah, and what kind of instructions did you get for coming here? And, what were you expected to work on?
I think it's just getting more at-bats under my belt, kind of simulating a big league season more. I mean, I think I played 115 games before coming here.
Around that, yeah.
But obviously, the goal is to play 162 at the big league level. So just getting more at bats and being more along the lines of a big league season structure.
Yeah, and you played the year of both AA and AAA, knocking on the door of Boston. What was your takeaway from seeing the upper minors?
Obviously, it's more competitive, I'd say, like around the zone on the pitching side. I mean, in the lower levels, it felt like guys would, have big misses and sometimes, 4-pitch walks, but up there when guys miss, it's more competitive misses around the zone, I'd say.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and one thing that stood out to me looking at your numbers is that the slugging went up, but it was because you had more doubles, it felt like. What went into that?
I think it was just, last offseason I had a hitting coach that I got with, and we worked on a couple of things that I knew I needed to work on, and really strengthening my top hand, being a right-handed thrower, left-handed hitter, and I think that is what attributed to that.
Yeah, what does that do for you when you are working on that top hand? How does that kind of manifest itself?
Well, obviously, when you throw with the opposite hand, it makes that bottom hand dominant, which made my swing very flat. And it still is flat, which is why I can hit pitches up in the zone well, but it's certainly got a lot better since last year. So
yeah, and how do you balance that then? Because you talk about hitting balls up in the zone. So much of modern pitching is throwing up in the zone. So how do you kind of marry those two?
Well, I think if I'm on time for that pitch up there and can cover that, it's better for me to adjust down with the way that my swing works. So,
yeah, and you got a little bit of a taste of Worcester at the end. How close does that make you feel to Boston?
I mean, it's literally one level away, man, and different things happen throughout a year. Guys have injuries or need certain guys to come up and do certain things in certain situations. So it's definitely cool to know that I'm that close, and playing against AAA guys that have been in the show, it shows that I'm right there with all of them. So.
Yeah, and going back to that adjustment you were talking about, when did it feel like it really clicked in for you, that it was working?
So I started to feel really good, getting ready to leave for spring training, and going to spring training and starting to get those at-bats and things like that is when I was like, I got this. So.
No, that'll do it. And one reason I wanted to talk to you is you have kind of a unique situation. You've already been traded twice in your career. I don't think anybody else here in the Fall League has gone through that. What is it like to be traded not once but twice
twice. How do you kind of approach that process?
Yeah, I mean, the way that I approach it and see it is that, you know, it obviously shows that people see me fit into their system and value the way that I play. I mean, I play 110% every time. You know, I hit a ground ball, I run it out every time. So it just takes one person to notice, and yeah.
Yeah, and what is the difference for you when you went from the Padres to the Red Sox? That was in season. When you went from the Mariners to the Padres, that was out of season. So what is it like when you were moved, you know, at the deadline essentially last year?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, you know, going to a new place, you know, you want to kind of show people what you got, and I think that's not too much of what I got caught up in, but, you know, just wanting to prove yourself and meeting new guys and new faces, learning kind of what an organization is about. So it was a little bit of a adjustment process, but I think going through spring training with them and getting acclimated with the staff really helped out. Yeah,
I was going to ask, like, how long is that adjustment period, especially when you are moving affiliates and you're still expected to perform on a day-to-day basis?
Yeah, I would say, you know, going into the offseason, you know, we talked obviously about different things I needed to work on going into the next year. And then actually getting to go and spend time with the different coordinators and things throughout spring training definitely helped out. And then kind of what I got an idea of what the org was about is when I really started to feel comfortable and just settle into myself and play my own game.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and has there been something the Red Sox have identified with you that you've worked on differently than you were during your time in the Padres system?
Not really. I mean, obviously, you know, they wanted to see the extra bases go up. Mm-hmm. With me being a speed guy, obviously – my amount of doubles last year was a little low for that, but yeah.
Yeah, and your career is also fascinating to me, being a 12th rounder and being traded twice. Like you said, being wanted by two different clubs. What was it like going through that draft process coming out of UNC Greensboro?
For sure. I mean, obviously, you know, I put up good numbers, so I had pretty high expectations, but everyone that's gone through the draft knows that things don't always go to plan. My head coach, Billy Godwin, was actually a longtime scout for the Yankees, and he kind of gave me an idea of some of his friends that were obviously scouts were thinking, and then didn't work out that way, but kind of put a chip on my shoulder, honestly. I mean, definitely put a chip on my shoulder, and I'm going to keep riding that wave all the way up, man.
Yeah, I was going to say, you came flying out of the gate with Visalia. Was it that chip on your shoulder, or what allowed you to make the adjustment to pro ball so quickly?
I think honestly, the chip played a part, and then just, you know, believing in myself and my craft. I mean, we talk about guys that have competitive fire. Not everybody has that, and I know it's something that I have, so it definitely gives me an edge, and I just won't go away. So
fair enough. Yeah, and has anybody ever come up to you and asked for advice of like going through a trade or like what that like, and what advice do you give guys who have gone through that process?
The best advice that I would think is just, you know, be yourself. I mean, obviously, if you're a part of a trade, it means something and is a big deal. Obviously, to be especially against a big league trade. So just be yourself, play your game, and the rest will fall into place.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and you mentioned you being a speed guy. Since you've been in pro ball, minors have had the different stolen base rules, but having seen those at the major league level now, how much do you feel like that will affect your ability to get there?
I think it'll obviously help, you know, to exploit those things and use it to my advantage. So,
yeah, does that kind of put a little extra, not pressure, but like willingness on your part to show off speed and show you can be that guy who can take advantage of the rules?
I think so, yeah. I mean, it's something that, you know, constantly wreaks havoc. You know, as soon as I get on base, it's in the back of guys' minds. So they like to throw a lot of guys' fastballs that hit behind me. And then, you know, he's got to change his motion. He can't go high leg kick because it's going to be a free stolen base every time. So right. It can help other hitters at the plate too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and do you have a constant green light, or when you guys talk about that on the either here or with the Sox in general?
Yeah, I mean, most of the time I have green light. Obviously, there's certain situations, you know, if we're down a couple runs or up big, they'll, you know, say dial it back. But any other time, I usually have the green light to go ahead and run.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and in the Red Sox system, they have another burner in David Hamilton. You guys raced it at all?
We haven't yet, but we talked about it. So we'll have to make that happen at some point.
You're coming to Fort Myers at some point next year. All right, well, you're the one I'm talking to now. How do you feel like you do?
I think I'd give him a run for his money, honestly. I mean, you know, he's broken the record, but I think it would be a lot closer race than people would think.
All right. Well, maybe you guys do a best out of 10 or something like that in Fort Myers next year. All right. And just like going into next year, you know, kind of anticipating this offseason, you talked about working with a hitting coach. Is that going to continue? What are your kind of plans for the offseason?
Yeah, so that hitting coach and where I worked out was in Tampa. So after this, I'll definitely plan on going back. Obviously, you know, with the success I had, and there's a lot of big leaguers who hit with him. So just soaking up that knowledge from them and keep working and grinding. So
Any big leaguers in particular you've gravitated towards in those conversations?
Yeah, so when I signed with Seattle, as you know, and I met Julio Rodriguez there. And
that's a pretty good one to learn from.
Yeah, and he happened to lift at the same place, so he ended up actually introducing me to the hitting coach.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and he's a really cool guy, so I would say he's one, and then Manuel Margot.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, former Red Sox prospect too.
Yeah.
Outfielder.
He was, in my groups a lot and talked with him a lot. And, the list of names, though, is unbelievable. So even just sitting there watching, I'm constantly trying to pick up any little thing that I can get just through their routine and kind of how they go about things. So.
Right. Yeah, and obviously Julio has been a phenom the last 2 years in the majors. What is something you picked up from him just watching him?
His work ethic is really good, man. I mean, it's one thing to, have talent, but then to have talent and then still work hard, that's why he's doing what he's doing. So,
yeah, no, fair enough. All right, well, this is a minor league podcast, so I want to ask a couple of quick fire questions. What is your favorite hat you've worn in the minors so far?
Ooh, favorite hat?
Because you've won a few of them, so you got a lot to choose from.
For sure. I think it was honestly with Portland. I think a lot of guys throughout the Eastern League actually voted our hats the best. And we had this, for Memorial Day, we had these green military ones that were really cool.
There you go.
Either that one or the 4th of July, I'd say.
All right, fair enough. And well, kind of touching on that, being in Portland, being in Worcester, you get to experience New England. Red Sox are the team in New England. What is it like tapping into that culture and just seeing what the fan base is like?
Yeah, obviously they're very supportive. People come from all over to, see us play and things like that, and they're all very supportive. There's a lot of families and kids that were, DMing on Instagram, wishing you the best. So it's really cool to experience something like that and know that you have people behind you rooting you on. So,
how many lobster rolls did you have?
I had my fair share, for sure.
Well, there you go. That's the place to have them.
Absolutely.
All right, well, the next one. What is your favorite minor league alternate identity that you've worn so far?
Is that like the special?
Yeah, specialty jersey. It could be one of the food ones, could be one of the holiday ones or Marvel ones, whatever.
I enjoy the Marvel night. I'm a big Marvel fan.
Okay.
So wearing those uniforms. I don't know if we wore one in Portland this year, but I know last year in Fort Wayne we did. So.
Right. All right, so what's your favorite Marvel movie?
Favorite Marvel movie? It's such a hard...
I know, yeah. Right. What first comes to mind? Or the first 3 or so that come to mind? Put it that way.
I would say the second Avengers one. Which one is that? It's
Age of Ultron or the Endgame?
Endgame.
Oh,
yeah.
That's a good one. All right. What is your favorite minor league road city to play in?
Favorite road city? Can I give you my favorite field?
Sure. That works too.
Hartford.
Yeah.
That one was sick, man. Their facilities there were top of the line. And also Worcester, man. That was a beautiful ballpark too.
Right.
So
what did you like most about playing in Worcester?
I would say the support. Hearing people cheer you on and talking, doing different events outside of the field and just meeting people and actually getting to interact. So it was really cool to experience that.
Yeah, and both Worcester and Hartford have that unique feature in right. It's called the Worcester Wall in Worcester, and they have that kind of net in right. And how does that change how you play outfield when you're playing up against those structures like that?
I honestly think it makes it easy just because, if something is, burnt over your head, you kind of just turn around and play it off the wall.
Well, yeah, and if you're playing in Boston someday, you might be going up against the Green Monster. How much do you envision that, or how much do you guys even practice that in the Red Sox system, knowing that could be coming someday?
Yeah, I think the best time, honestly, is during BP, getting live reads off the bat, because that's the most simulated the game-like reps. And really locking in you don't have to do it the whole time, but really taking a round of power shagging, I think, goes a long way.
And given all the teammates you've played with, either here, Worcester, Portland, beyond, wherever, what is one tool you would steal from somebody else and give it to your game?
Ooh. That's a good question. Do you know who Joshua Mears is?
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
His raw power.
His raw power, yeah. Right. I think everybody would take that if they could.
The ball a long way.
Right, yeah. No, that's a great one. All right, well, thanks so much, Corey. I appreciate it.
Absolutely, brother.
Yeah, best of luck the rest of the way.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
We interrupt this podcast to bring you another thrilling edition of Ghosts of the Miners. Now, here's your correspondent and host, Joshua Jackson.
Welcome back to Ghosts of the Miners, in which all of you out there in radio land must identify the legitimate historical ball club or player hiding amidst the fraudulent pair amateurs. The others never even tried to sell a single ticket, nor anything else. In the last segment, I asked you which of the following minor league baseball teams did at one time exist. A, the Battle Creek Graham Slammers. B, the Montpelier Goldfish. C, the Newton Fig Munchers. We're going to get along swimmingly if you picked B, the Montpelier Goldfish, who dove into the Quebec-Ontario-Vermont League of 1924. The capital of Vermont, Montpelier got its name from the French phrase that means Mount Pilier. Whence exactly the Goldfish got their name is tough to say with gold star certainty, and I don't want to make any fishy claims. There are sources that credibly suggest the team wore gold-trimmed uniforms in reflection of the beautiful gold-leafed dome of the Vermont State House. But most period sources that survive today don't contain mention of the Goldfish moniker at all. Like many of the minor league and semi-pro club names of the 19th and early 20th centuries, Montpelier's team name likely lacked the official standing or complex marketing underpinnings that we recognize in minors team names today. What we do know is that goldfish were a big deal in the 20s, goldfish swallowing being a popular trend among college kids of the day. Our goldfish of the diamond would indeed be swallowed up in short order, hatched as they were into the still waters of a league destined to last but one season. Montpelier had previously had semi-pro teams in concert with the neighboring burg of Barrie as recently as 1907. The Montpelier-Barrie alliance was set to begin a new era in 24, but at a meeting of league officials on April 18, the directors of the Barrie interest withdrew. The whole circuit appeared to be about to collapse before it even began, but Montpelier decided to just keep swimming, letting the Goldfish go it alone. Having thus elected to sink or swim, the Goldfish were overseen by Arthur W. Punch Daly, who had managed some of the old Montpelier-Barrie teams of yore and who was instrumental in organizing the miners' rebirth in the capital city. There exists some confusion about who exactly was the field manager of the Goldfish, with sources flipping and flopping among names like Bill McCory, the one-time St. Louis Browns hurler who actually spent the 24 season mostly with rival Rutland, and a mysterious Mike McCory, and some suggesting that Daly was actually the manager of Rutland. But Daly was undeniably involved on a daily basis with creating the Montpelier franchise, and newspaper accounts of the summer make it clear that Daly was leading the Goldfish by the gills, while it was one Art Cruz who kept Rutland out of any ruts. What nobody contests is that Montpelier's big man on the mount in 24 was Al Grabowski, who would be a big league hurler with the Cardinals in 29 and 30, and who posted a remarkable 1.94 ERA with the Goldfish. But Montpelier might have been tinkering around when it came to building out a roster of strong position players, although the Goldfish did have Joe Evers, brother to Johnny Evers, the Hall of Famer immortalized in Franklin Pierce Adams' poem, Baseball's Sad Lexicon. With a celebrity like that in the family, you'd think Joe Evers would thrive in a fishbowl. Alas, he appears to have posted a .295 slugging percentage with Montpelier and then promptly retired. And in mid-July, the whole Goldfish franchise retired, having gone belly up with a 16-37 record. It wasn't only the floundering that did the Goldfish in, though. Rutland was in fine fettle at 34-20, but it too collapsed. In fact, presaging Montpelier's pop-out by a few days. The exit of those two teams left only Quebec and Ontario clubs in the ill-fated Quebec-Ontario-Vermont League. And that's how the Montpelier Goldfish got flushed. Now, on to the question for next time. Which of these animalistic clubs cultivated the field in the minors of yesteryear? A. The Rain Rice Birds. B. The Wayne Wheat Wolves. C. The Cane Corn Crows. Want to know the answer? Head to the Harvest. Or tune in for the next Ghosts of the Miners. But for now, you'll have to excuse me. My producer Ben Hill is out raking, and I've got to change pitchers.
Big thanks to everybody who has joined the show on this week's episode of The Show Before the Show, including Corey Rosier, the Boston Red Sox, Josh Jackson stopping by for Ghost of the Miners, Benjamin Hill earlier as well. We are nearing the World Series and matchup of two teams who will play to be the one here in 2023. Last week, we kind of gave our predictions. I hedged my bets by saying I thought it would end up being Phillies Astros, but I was kind of pulling for Phillies Rangers. The Rangers have a soft spot in my heart, having worked one season with that organization. And then the Rangers went out, won the first two games, looked terrific in Houston, and then kind of got waxed back in Arlington last night in Game 3. The D-backs, game 1 looked like maybe they were going to be able to sneak in late and steal that game. Game 2, they just kind of forgot to show up. And they head back to the desert for Game 3. Sam, how you feeling? You called Rangers Phillies, and we are on the inside track for that right now. How you feeling about your prediction?
And as things stand right now, I feel obviously pretty good about the Phillies. And then I also felt good about the Phillies last week when I made that call before the NLDS was up. And I was like, oh no, this is going to blow up in my face real fast. But it didn't. The Phillies came through on that end. I think it's going to be Phillies in 5. I think the D-backs do get one here at home. They are too good of it. Like that offense can click at any time. And if the Phillies just have an off night, which happens in baseball, I think they can steal one for sure. Maybe Corbin Carroll goes off, has 2 homers, 4 RBIs. They win 6-4, something like that. We'll see. But I do think the Diamondbacks are capable of stealing at least one. And we saw, in Game 3 with the Astros, they are capable of becoming a juggernaut again too. They had to hold off the Rangers. Like Josh Young took over for Evan Carter in terms of like the rookie standout for Texas. But I think the Astros are not going to go down quite so easily. I'm sticking with Rangers in 6. I still think that team is very dynamic and has the pitching, has the bullpen to make it work. And obviously they have a game advantage right now. And so I'm going to go, Rangers in 6, Phillies in 5.
Here's the bigger question. Are you going to be able to scrape together 5 whole American dollars to buy a ticket to Game 3? No, they're up to $20 for Game 3 now. So since we dogged D-backs fans at the beginning of the show, they've quadrupled in price. $20 whole dollars.
Well, again, it's a Thursday at 2 o'clock.
It is. Here. I know. And I'm just like, I gotta get after it a little bit.
Yes, no,
no, it is it's not an easy time. I did actually see a comment on the internet, which I try to avoid generally, but I thought this was a very cool take on this. Somebody said, oh, that's good, actually. That means families and kids can go see an MLB playoff game for an affordable price. And I was like, damn, that's a great way of looking at this. Like if you have the ability to like take your kiddo out of school and go to Game 3 of the National League Championship Series and get tickets for a price that you can afford, that's awesome. I think that's super cool.
Yeah. Or if you're like Ben Hill, bring your mom.
Yeah, exactly. You could be the kid
affair,
bringing the parent instead of vice versa. So I think that's super cool. And I don't think the D-backs are going to go as quietly. That team, Mike Hayes and Torey Lovello, they have put together something impressive in Arizona. What they did to the Dodgers, obviously. I think they're going to get 1, maybe 2 at home. I still think the Phillies are going to take that series, but I don't think it's going to be a sweep. Now granted, they go out today and they jump all over Arizona early and they get a win in Game 3, this thing is pretty much over. But I think the D-backs have got some fight left in them. The Rangers, I'm not sure. They were 7-0 to start the playoffs. Max Scherzer, I think unfortunately we're kind of witnessing the twilight of Max Scherzer's career. That's it's weird to see these guys who have been so great for so long, him and Justin Verlander, and seeing them now under the big lights, the bright lights of the postseason, and thinking like, oh, I don't know how many times we're going to see this again. That's kind of tough. And he was not great last night in Game 3. I don't know. The Rangers are playing. I listened to a college football podcast where they talk about zombie Alabama. Like you just can't ever count out Alabama because they know how to do this. That's the Astros in Major League Baseball. We got the zombie Astros now. I don't know. I got no idea how to predict that series still. I think the Phillies are going to handle the rest of the NLCS. But if the Astros came back and reeled off the next 3 and won it in 6, I can't say I'd be completely surprised. And that's what makes the playoffs so fun, you know?
Yeah. And one thing I love about this series so far is there have been 3 games. The road team has won every game.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, the Rangers were not, I don't know, they weren't overwhelmed by the moment by playing in Houston, which like Houston is very comfortable playing in the ALCS at home. They weren't overwhelmed by that. And the Astros aren't overwhelmed by anything in the playoffs and take game 3 going back. So like neither of these teams are scared of what's in front of them. And that trickles down to Evan Carter. Evan Carter is like one of the most even-keeled players I've ever seen.
Yeah.
Never mind rookies, just overall. I remember talking to him in April and just noticing like this guy is so comfortable talking about himself, about his story, about who he is as a baseball player. And that's carried straight through to the majors. And the Rangers have a bunch of those guys. Corey Seager is not somebody who gets too high, too low. Marcus Semien doesn't get too high, too low. Like that team is built around those dudes.
It's pretty
funny. Compare that to the Phillies, who are always too high.
Right, exactly.
They make that work.
And they ride it. Yeah, they make it work. It is funny, after the American League Division Series, they interviewed Corey Seager on MLB Network. And, you know, you and I talked to Corey Seager a ton as he was coming up. Did we ever have Corey Seager on the show? I don't think we ever had him on the show.
I don't think we did, but I'll look that up while you're talking. Go ahead.
But you know, we'd talk to him at AA and at AAA, and he's coming up with the Dodgers, and he's a stud. He's already got big league bloodlines. You know, Kyle's already showing out in the majors and all that. Corey Seager was nothing if not an extremely polite and very even-keeled interview every single time we talked. And they're talking to him on MLB Network after the Rangers won the division series. And I thought, oh, he's the same exact dude. Like, he is the same guy being interviewed. And that's great. Good for him, you know, to be a big league star, to be leading a team, you know, to the precipice of the World Series and still just be the same guy that you've been throughout your baseball life. I think that's awesome. You know, same goes for Kyle Schwarber. I was watching him being interviewed by Tom Verducci, by Matt Weiner, I believe, a couple days ago. And Kyle Schwarber seems like the same guy who we used to talk to when he was coming up in the minor leagues. That always makes you really happy when you know, these guys who you've seen grow and come up throughout their time, and now they're having all the success at the big league level, and they just seem to be kind of the same dudes that they were. I find that very cool.
Yeah, I mean, and kind of along those lines, Bryce Harper, who was like before my time covering, like my first year was the year he got called up to the majors. So I never interviewed Bryce Harper or anything like that, but certainly remember him, Trout, and Matt Moore being like the big 3 of when I started covering prospects. But he had a great quote the other night, which was about how this is not pressure to him. Pressure was getting taken first overall in the draft. Like, trying to go into junior college at such a young age and being like, this is all so I can sign a big deal coming out of school. That was pressure to me. Everything after that is fine. Like, I've handled that before, and this is gravy to me, and I'm just having fun. And you can tell. And I love that. I love that perspective.
He really is. We've talked about this before on the show. Bryce Harper, love him or hate him, the thing that I have always appreciated most about Bryce Harper is that he so unapologetically loves baseball. Mm-hmm. And I think we live in a world where people have to so often apologize for what they like about baseball, and that it's not the NFL and it's not the NBA and it's not, you know, the cliche sport that Taylor Swift is showing up to and all that kind of stuff. Bryce Harper is so unapologetic about his love for the game and his desire to be one of the greatest who's ever done it. And the fact that, like, he was on the cover of Sports Illustrated at 15, 16, whatever it was. He has never left the public consciousness since then. And he just continues to do the job and keeps getting better. You know, he homers on his birthday in the National League Championship Series. He is on the verge of leading a team to back-to-back National League pennants. He's doing it as one of the most visible stars of the sport. Is he as great a player as Mike Trout? No. But has he taken on the mantle of all the pressure that you could ever put on a teenage athlete and somehow been as good as the expectations that were set for him, that's incredible. You know, I think he's done all that. And the fact that we still might have 10 plus years of Bryce Harper to watch is pretty damn cool as well, especially now that he's taken to first base so well and, you know, might continue to move around as he gets healthy again. But man, what an amazing guy to be an asset for this game and to be doing what he's doing in Philly. I also think it's very cool that we are thankfully, thank goodness, hopefully never again going to see a neutral site World Series. But the fact there was a World Series played in that new ballpark in Texas, and you thought like, man, that's so weird. The Rangers didn't get a chance to play in the first World Series at their home park. They can do that now. It's only 3 years later, and the Rangers can finally do that. I think that's very cool for the Rangers and Rangers fans.
Yeah, I was going to say, especially for the fans.
Yeah.
And watching their park being used in that way. And like, I get it, why it was, but now being able to participate in that, we'll see. Like, again, not ruling out
a lot to be decided. Right.
Yes.
Yeah.
They're playing meaningful ALCS games, which
is pretty dang cool in its own right. So a lot still to be determined in the American League and National League Championship Series, and of course by next week when we more than likely know where we are headed for Game 1 of the World Series, we will be with you all the way through as baseball crowns a champion here in 2023. For Sam Dykes, for Benjamin Hill, Josh Jackson, and everyone else at MILB, my name is Tyler Mon. That'll do it for this week's episode of the Show Before the Show. We'll catch you next week.